2 hours ago, a classified memo leaked out of Brussels, and Washington thought they had just checkmated Canada on the global stage. The Trump administration quietly tried to pull the plug on $4.2 billion of shared NATO infrastructure funding. We are talking about billions of dollars that Canada has literally contributed to and drawn from for over 3 decades. The White House wanted to make an example out of us. They wanted to parade Canada in front of our own allies as a freeloader, forcing Ottawa into a corner where we looked weak, dependent, and completely isolated. But if you think Washington is celebrating right now, you are completely wrong. Because in the span of exactly 120 minutes, Mark Carney didn't just dodge the trap. He completely dismantled Donald Trump's entire NATO strategy. And he did it with just 3 phone calls. Let's set the scene. Because you really need to understand how aggressive this American move was. This wasn't just a standard diplomatic disagreement over budgets. This was a direct, calculated attack on Canadian sovereignty. The directive from Washington had 3 very specific, very ruthless mechanisms designed to inflict maximum political pain. First, any joint NATO procurement program where American funding makes up more than 30% was immediately suspended, pending a so-called Canadian compliance review. We are talking about 14 active defense modernization projects. Everything from our vital Arctic surveillance infrastructure to next-generation fighter integration systems that Canadian engineers have been developing alongside American contractors for years. Just halted. Frozen without warning. And this is where things get genuinely infuriating. Second, the Americans ordered their military liaison officers embedded with our own forces at NORAD headquarters in Colorado Springs to cut off intelligence sharing. They literally downgraded Canada to Tier 2 classification inside our own alliance, inside an organization where a Canadian is literally the co-commander. The message from the White House was unmistakable. You are being downgraded inside your own house. You are second-class citizens in North America. But wait, because it gets even bigger. The Pentagon then issued a public statement suggesting that Canada's Arctic sovereignty claims might require a, quote, multilateral reassessment. Given our current defense spending levels, think about that for a second. Washington literally put our northern borders, our territorial integrity, on the table as a bargaining chip. They threatened the Canadian North just to score a political win. The assumption in the Oval Office was that Canada would panic, that we would capitulate quietly, or issue some desperate plea for negotiations that just confirmed we were the dependent little junior partner Trump always claimed we were. But Carney didn't call an emergency press conference. He didn't send out his foreign minister to beg. He didn't issue a panicked diplomatic statement. He just picked up the phone. And those 3 phone calls made within the last 2 hours just changed the entire geopolitical landscape of the Western world. The first call went straight to the Secretary General of NATO in Brussels. Most people completely missed this dynamic. But Carney knew exactly how the NATO Charter actually works. Within 90 minutes of that call, NATO issued a formal public statement, and they didn't side with the United States. NATO clarified that alliance funding access is determined by the full membership body. No single member state, not even the United States of America, has the legal authority to unilaterally suspend another member. NATO publicly declared the American memo had absolutely 0 legal standing. Let that sink in. Trump tried to use NATO as a weapon against Canada, and NATO turned around and basically told the White House to stand down. But Carney was just getting started. Are you ready for this? The second call went to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And London's response was immediate and absolutely brutal for Washington's narrative. Britain announced it is accelerating its bilateral defense pact with Canada, throwing down an additional $1.8 billion in joint Arctic security investment. The specific language out of Downing Street was deliberate and calculated. They stated that the UK stands with its closest Commonwealth partner without condition. Then came call number 3. The President of France. Paris immediately responded by proposing a Canada-EU enhanced defense partnership at the upcoming European Council session. They offered Canada observer status in European defense procurement programs. Do you know how much that market is worth? Over 200 billion euros. In less than 2 hours, Trump tried to lock Canada in a closet. And Carney just walked around the block and found 3 massive doors wide open, turning a desperate isolation play into a massive diplomatic expansion. Now, if you are leaving this video now, you are going to miss the absolute biggest shockwave of the day, because the response did not stop with those phone calls. This afternoon, Mark Carney walked into Parliament. He didn't bring notes. He didn't use a teleprompter. He stood dead center at the dispatch box, looked right across the room, and delivered a single opening line that completely stopped the chamber cold. He said, and I quote, "Canada has never needed permission to defend itself, and we are not about to start asking for it now." And then he dropped the hammer. He announced Canada's own countermeasures, and every single one of them was surgical. First, Canada is immediately filing a formal challenge at the International Court of Justice in The Hague regarding the legality of using alliance mechanisms as economic coercion tools. And here is the brilliant part. Legal teams in Ottawa and The Hague have been preparing this exact filing for months. It was already sitting on the desk. They were just waiting for Washington to make a mistake. Second, and this is the one that is currently causing absolute chaos in Washington, Canada is fast-tracking its domestic defense procurement program, and we are officially stripping American contractors of their preferred vendor status on 11 active military projects. We're talking about a combined value of $9.3 billion gone. European and domestic Canadian suppliers are being moved to the front of the line, effective immediately. Think about the panic that just caused in the American military-industrial complex. Lobbyists for Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and General Dynamics were storming congressional offices within an hour of Carney's speech. And they aren't advocating for Trump's position. They are furiously advocating against it. Because losing preferred vendor status in Canada doesn't just hurt feelings. It costs American defense corporations billions of dollars in real, tangible revenus. But Carney wasn't done. Third, he announced that Canada is proposing a brand new Arctic Security Council, a multilateral framework involving Norway, Denmark, Finland, and the United Kingdom, specifically designed to manage Arctic sovereignty and surveillance completely independent of American coordination. Washington threatened our Arctic, so Canada just built a new northern alliance that completely cuts the United States out of the loop. And fourth, the absolute kill shot that hit Washington the hardest. Just 2 hours after the original memo leaked, Canada officially opened formal discussions with Japan and South Korea about joint Pacific defense technology development. Carney looked straight into the camera and said it so plainly. Canada's alliances are not limited to one continent, and they are not contingent on one country's approval. The Pentagon did not see this coming. A senior defense official literally told reporters off the record this afternoon that they assumed they were Canada's primary security relationship. He admitted, quote, "We may have fundamentally misread how much work Ottawa has been doing quietly. They thought we were entirely dependent on them. They didn't realize Carney had already laid the groundwork, warmed up the alliances, and had the entire trap set before Washington even walked into the room. This was not improvisation. This was pure, calculated preparation. Even within the Republican caucus right now, voices are starting to emerge, questioning the sheer strategic stupidity of alienating a Five Eyes intelligence partner, a NORAD co-commander, and a country that shares the longest undefended border in human history. Look at the international reaction. It is overwhelmingly in Canada's favor. Germany publicly called the American memo deeply concerning. Australia reaffirmed its intelligence sharing commitment to Canada directly. Norway immediately endorsed our new Arctic Security Council framework. Canada is not being isolated today. Canada is being embraced by the global community. So, where does this leave Donald Trump right now? He is staring down the barrel of a move that has backfired at every single conceivable level. He has three paths forward. And let me tell you, none of them are good for Washington. Path 1, he can double down. He can formally escalate the NATO funding dispute and watch the entire alliance publicly fracture along lines that make America look like a bully and an aggressor, rather than the protector of the free world. Path 2, he can quietly retreat. He can withdraw the memo, pretend it never had legal standing anyway, and absorb the massive public humiliation of backing down from a country he has spent months mocking as a junior partner. Or path 3, he can try to negotiate. But Mark Carney already set the rules for that game. Canada does not negotiate under threat. Carney has made it crystal clear. The memo gets withdrawn first, completely and unconditionally. And only then can talks begin. Trump has to blink before anyone even pulls up a chair at the table. Every single path leads to the exact same place. A White House that massively overplayed its hand against a Canadian Prime Minister who had already mapped out every single exit before Washington even tried to lock the door. 2 hours ago, Trump called this memo a warning shot. 2 hours later, Canada's defense partnerships span 4 continents. Our legal challenges are filed. Our alternative procurement pipeline is wide open and ready for business. And our allies are lining up beside us. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine respect for how Ottawa has handled every single escalation with precision, patience, and absolute preparation. Trump wanted to make Canada feel small today. Instead, he handed Mark Carney the perfect opportunity to show the entire world exactly how massive Canada's global relationships actually are. Mark Carney is not reacting anymore. He hasn't been reacting for months. Every single move Trump makes lands on a chessboard that Carney set up long before the game even began. 2 hours ago, Washington thought it was delivering a warning. 2 hours later, it is Washington that has been warned. But I want to know what you think about this massive geopolitical shift. Is this the moment Canada finally breaks free from American defense dependency once and for all? Has Ottawa permanently changed the power dynamic in North America? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If this gave you a clearer picture of what is actually happening behind the headlines, smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next update. And share this video with someone who needs to see how Canada really stands its ground on the world stage.